Welcome to L-Space Archives. Today we're going to travel back in time to take a look at books from yesteryear, a blast from the past, the golden oldies, to see what I was reading in a bygone era. So let's fire up the time machine as we travel all the way back to December of 2025. Okay, I may have got caught up in watching other people's YouTube videos and forgot to make my own wrap-up video for last month, so here's what I was reading last month. The first book is a collection of short stories, Future Imperfect, by James Gunn. No, that's the director. No, that's the TV show. Okay, that's just Guns N' Roses. James Gunn. Okay, that's Cornelius looking at a naked pig woman coming out of banana. It's like you're not even trying now. Focus. Vintage sci-fi author James Gunn. These stories had a lot of 1950s humor, with many centered on gender roles that are admittedly a bit outdated. Nothing offensive. In fact, he has some stories where he turns the tables and makes fun of male stereotypes as well. But if you read these back to back, you might get a little 1950s era marriage relationship joke fatigue. However, some of the more notable stories were Little Orphan Android, about a man who receives an unwanted robot which causes him ever-increasing financial difficulties. The story takes the corporate need for rampant consumerism to its robotic extremes. This is a great story. Next one was Skin Game. This is about a con artist who gets kicked off a spaceship onto a planet where the less possessions you have, the higher your social status. This is another satirical take on consumerism, featuring a natural-born con artist who has to figure out how to get people to stop giving him things and how to come up with a reverse con to unload all of his possessions. It's a fun story. Then there was Feeding Time. This has a tiny bit of a cosmic horror energy. With a girl and her psychiatrist discussing her visions of a terrifying alien monster that is trying to get through into their own reality to feed. It's a fantastic twist at the end of this. I gave each of those stories 4 stars. The rest of the stories here were mostly 3 stars. They were entertaining. Next, I read Tama, Princess of Mercury by Ray Cummings. This is a sequel to Tama of the Light Country, which I read a couple of years ago. It was my introduction to Ray Cummings. They're both very pulpy planetary adventure stories, but I do love his world building. The inhabited planet of Mercury in these stories is well done, if not scientifically accurate. And while Cummings' characters and their dialogue can be stilted, he does give a surprisingly ahead of its time treatment to the female characters. Even though this is set up to be your typical male protagonist saves the damsels in distress type of stories with Mercurian males kidnapping our Earth women, he actually subverts those expectations. Generally, it's the females doing most of the rescuing and the heavy lifting in the plot. In the first novel, he also handles the romantic love interests much better than most of his contemporaries did in this era of sci-fi. There is no instantaneous love at first sight. The characters actually talk and get to know each other before deciding to get hitched. And the second book, Cummings' prose does get slightly better. However, I did notice more logical gaps in the characters' motivations, actions, and reactions. I would give both of these novels somewhere between 3 and 3.5 stars as far as recommending them to others, but my personal ineffable enjoyment of them was definitely much higher than that. If you're a fan of pulp-style planetary adventures, you should definitely give these a try. Speaking of planetary adventures, next up I read Toyman by EC Tubb. This is the 3rd book in the Dumerous saga. I'm still very early on in my Earl of Dumerous journey, but I'm absolutely loving this series. Again, thank you so much to Deb, the omnivorous reader, for bringing these to my attention. These are very much in the tradition of planetary adventure stories. with our protagonist trying to find his way back to Earth. But the world building, the characters, and the prose take this several steps above your average pulp style adventures. The first book in the series, The Winds of Gath, was a 5-star read for me. It was crazy good. The second book, I think, was like 4.5 stars, but only because I was rating it against the first book. Realistically, on its own merits, it was probably still a 5-star book. In this one, Doomerist is on the planet Toy, where he hopes to access its renowned library to find information about Earth's location. Having no money, he is immediately thrown into an arena-type situation where teams fight to the death. Of course, he survives along with another guy, and they escape. Now, the planet Toy is run like a mega corporation, with major stockholders having positions of power within the government. But the true ruler, president, CEO is a megalomaniac a-hole. There's a cyber, which are the main antagonists in the series, is cozying up to the ruler, hoping to gain influence, and has some sort of secret agenda of his own. Meanwhile, some of the stockholders are secretly planning, shall we say, a hostile takeover. Doomerist gets pulled into the political intrigue and adventures ensue. This one was shaping up to be another 5-star entry into the series, but I did knock it down to a 4.5 stars. The third act had an internal logic issue regarding the plot. The Cyber's grand plan was overly convoluted, and considering the Cybers are supposed to be a highly logical race, his master plan didn't make a whole lot of sense. There were far easier ways to accomplish his goal, and his plans seemed to actually reduce the chances of achieving that goal rather than increase them. But again, this is me being super nitpicky. Even with that one plot hole at the end, this was all sorts of fun. I love the world building, the characters, the premise of this particular planet. Tubb's prose isn't wooden or stilted the way you often see in these types of stories by other authors. Highly recommend. Next up was Cap Kennedy, Secret Agent of the Spaceways #1, Galaxy of the Lost by Gregory Kern. Now, Gregory Kern was, in fact, also EC Tubb. So in the 1970s, Dahl wanted to create a retro, pulpy character in the same vein as Captain Future. So they created Cap Kennedy along with the house name Gregory Kern. Their initial plan was to have different authors write the Cap Kennedy stories under that house name. EC Tubb was tapped to write the first 2. But Dahl loved what he did so much they asked if he could just go ahead and write the whole series. So all 17 books in the Cap Kennedy series are actually by EC Tubb under the Kern house name. In this book, there is a particular sector of space where ships are going missing. Cap Kennedy, brilliant scientist, man's man, heartthrob, and freelance secret agent, gets called in to investigate. He goes undercover on a ship which will be crossing this specific area of space, while his team follows from their own spaceship. The ship Cap is on gets pulled into an alternate galaxy and crashes on an alien planet. This is written very pulpy, complete with stilted dialogue and some pretty two-dimensional characters, but I can't hold that against Tubb. That was the whole point of the series. Dahl wanted this to have a retro feel of a 1940s pulp, and Tubb delivers on that. If you're okay with that particular style of prose, you will love this. And even though this feels like it's a story written 30 to 40 years earlier, Tubb still adds his own flair to it. The setting on this weird planet is immersive and almost hallucinogenic. Again, great world building by Tubb. Plenty of survival action, killer robots, and the resolution of the central mystery as to why ships are getting pulled here is very well done and very satisfying. While I prefer the style of Tubb's Doomerist series, I do have to credit his writing chops for completely nailing that pulp era feel and prose on this one. Okay, the next book I read, you may have heard of. It's Weird Frequencies by, well, all the people that I watch on YouTube. I'm not going to give individual ratings for each story, but I will say this. I have read this whole thing twice and will be giving it a third read through very soon. I'm 61 years old. I have never read any anthology cover to cover twice, ever. Individual short stories, yes. An entire anthology cover to cover, no. There are no stories in here that weren't at the very least crazy good fun and highly entertaining. And I also want to say, Uncle Jimmy's story, The Dig, that story is legitimately Nebula Hugo Award level good. Everything about this collection makes me insanely happy. Okay, next up, Starwell by Alexei Panshin, with a cover art by Kelly Freeze. This was a really fun read. This takes place on an asteroid where there are casinos, dining rooms, luxury suites, shops, and mysterious goings-on in the basement. This is a humorous, tongue-in-cheek satire with an ensemble cast of interesting characters, all of whom seem to be hiding something. There are intrigues, dalliances, con games, and a hint of espionage. Our central character is the charming gentleman Anthony Villiers. This almost feels like a sci-fi comedy of manners with some mystery thrown in. It had an almost Victorian feel to the prose and the style. It was absolutely delightful. Characters all get 5 stars. The peeling back of their various motives. There are some points where the narrator addresses the reader directly, but that didn't bother me. It seemed very much in keeping with that almost Victorian style that you might find in a Charles Dickens story. If you're looking for something that's action-packed with lots of explosions and fight scenes, this may not be the book for you, although there is a duel that was pretty damn good. But anyway, even without those, this is by no means boring. All the characters completely engaged me in this. Evidently, there are 2 other books in the Anthony Villiers series, and I added them to my list the minute I finished reading this book. Loved this story, 5 stars. Next up, I read Louisa the Poisoner by Tanith Lee. This is a short 77-page story released as a chapbook. This is written in Lee's beautiful signature fairy tale style. When it first starts, it almost feels like it's going to be a children's or YA book. However, it quickly takes a darker yet humorous turn. Our central character, Louisa, grows up in this swamp called the March Mire, a place so dangerous that people rarely go into it. Those who do never return. Louisa is raised by her aunt, who is a bit of a herbalist, aka a witch. When Louisa was very young, a traveler came upon the cottage in the swamp where Louisa and her aunt lived. He had with him a bag of books about proper etiquette and manners. That man soon vanished mysteriously, but the aunt still had the books, and she forced Louisa to learn the appropriate etiquette for being a proper lady. When Louisa turned 19, her aunt discovered an herb she'd been searching for that allowed her to make an undetectable poison. She informed Louisa of her plan. They were going to leave the swamp, go into the nearby town, and Louisa would play the part of a gentlewoman, with her aunt acting as her servant. Louisa, being a beautiful young woman, would get some wealthy gentleman to fall in love with her and marry her, at which point they would poison him and inherit all of his money. That is the setup in the first 5 pages, so I'm going to stop there. This was a fun story with a decent body count, but all done in a quirky, humorous way. As I said, this was only 77 pages. It was a quick read. I love this, 5 stars. This is also available in audiobook and ebook formats, as well as in a physical chapbook like this one. If you're a fan of Tanith Lee's wonderful fairy tale prose, this is worth checking out. All right, I also got this in my last book haul. This is The Sqeeze by Gil Brewer. After I posted that haul video, I found out that Nick over at the Book Graveyard has a video review of this coming out soon. I wanted to hurry up and read it before watching his video, so I'm not doing a review on this. I just wanted to read this so I could watch Nick's video without worrying about spoilers. It was a quick read, a crime noir, femme fatale type of story. Other than that, keep an eye out for Nick's video for more of a dive into this. So, that's what I read for December. Coming up this month, I'll be a guest on a couple of live streams. These will be my first live streams, so I'm really excited about them. So one of them is a buddy read of this Fantastic Adventures pulp magazine. I'll be doing this with Jeff from Jeff's Cave of Cool Books over on his channel. I believe we're doing that on Saturday the 10th, 7 p.m. Arizona time. That's 9 p.m. Eastern time, or in Japan, I think that's Sunday morning at 11 a.m., I think. But it should be a fun conversation. I will also be joining the Eames crew along with Keith from Tau Zero on January 17th. We'll be reading Night Walk by Bob Shaw. It's going to be on Nick's channel this time around, and I am super stoked about this. All right, that's my belated wrap up for December. Hope everyone is having a great start to the new year. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.